Well, hello, hello. It is good to be live. It's been a while since I've been able to stream. Had a lot of busy stuff going on. Also, just like kind of dealing with my own sanity with everything blowing the frick up over on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch. Really, really excited to see how much the channel has grown. With like the whole Kelly discourse and everything that's going on there, I received like some criticisms, and I think that some of them were absolutely in good faith. And yeah, I want to discuss it because I always want to be up for criticism. Kind of the first criticism that I've been getting is people are accusing me of platforming Kelly, and I think that kind of in like the typical way we discuss platforming, it's not really fully applicable here. Typically, when we're referring to like platforming, there's a couple kind of key properties. You know, typically we would think of somebody who has a larger platform, who has more social capital, who is extending that capital to a smaller creator as a means of explicitly promoting their ideas and trying to foster their growth. Kind of like the classic examples we would have of like platforming in its purest sense would be like how Dave Rubin, back when he was doing his classical liberal grift, he would go on, like bring conservative people to just come onto his show and then just like nod his head and be like, wow, yeah, definitely, whenever a conservative person would say anything. And so I think there's definitely is a big difference between, first off, adversarial platforming versus symbiotic platforming, where the purpose of that conversation was not to just let Kelly promote her ideas. I was there to challenge all of her shitty takes. And then the other thing is that Kelly's platform was 8 times my size at the start of the debate. If we're going based off of the definition of platforming, which is based in like size differences, Kelly platformed me. I've been getting way more attention from this, and she's actually been losing her platform because of this. Her platform has been shrinking. She's been losing plenty of followers from it. There was another criticism I got where people asking why was I like tagging Kelly in like the actual TikTok clips. And I did tag her in like the first couple of clips I posted onto TikTok. Afterwards, she did block me on TikTok, so I can no longer tag her anymore. But the reason I tagged her was so that people could go over and unfollow her because, yeah, she had a massive platform, and I wanted people to see the shit that she had been saying, and people did go and unfollow her. She lost over 10,000 TikTok followers and counting as a result of those clips. Crazy to see, crazy to see. There were also some criticisms where people were saying, or just asking, like, why did I bring race into a conversation about, like, trans topics? And you can rewatch the debate. I actually did not explicitly bring up the topic of race. I discussed the immorality of slavery only in the abstract sense, but then Ku Klux Kelly took the conscious effort to make the conversation about her own anti-black racism and the slavery apologia. I was actually not the one that brought race into it, just to kind of like clarify that for people that were saying otherwise. But I did bring slavery into the conversation, that is true, and some people also seem to be confused why I brought up slavery in the first place. But the reason was to illustrate why the ad populum fallacy is a logical fallacy, which is the fallacy that's, you know, something is not right or correct simply because most people believe it to be so. So the point is that slavery is still immoral regardless of whether most people believe otherwise, regardless of the time period that we're in. Some people also asked why I didn't use a different example, and if you rewatch the debate, I actually originally did use a different example to try to illustrate the ad populum fallacy. I brought up the case that being rich isn't intrinsically immoral just because most people are not rich. It would be exploitation, not abnormality, is what's wrong with rich people. Kelly did not like that analogy. Actually, Kelly didn't like analogies in general, to be honest. And that's why I ended up bringing up slavery as a different example, illustrating the ad populum fallacy. You know, based off of Kelly's reaction, how bringing up the idea of slavery being immoral was not convincing. Yeah, if there exists a more intuitively correct and convincing example to illustrate why the ad populum fallacy is a logical fallacy, I should probably use that example instead. I've been kind of thinking of some potential candidates for a better example. One is that the Earth is still flat, even if most people think otherwise. Another example is that even if most people thought it would be, like, okay to punch a child, it's still not okay to punch a child. Or if most people say that you should jump off of a bridge, you probably still shouldn't jump off of a bridge. So just some ideas of, like, other examples for the ad populum fallacy. Other people said that I legitimized Kelly's views by debating her. I don't believe that I legitimized Kelly's views in any way. Any reasonable person who watched the debate and its clips is siding against Kelly. The like-dislike ratio of that video on my channel is near perfect at 98.5% like ratio versus 1.5% dislike ratio. That's like an insane like-dislike ratio on YouTube. It's one of the highest ones of my entire channel. And actually, the average like-dislike ratio for videos on my channel is 82%. So it's actually significantly better than that. As far as like legitimizing people's views, my YouTube channel doubled in size because of the debate. My TikTok platform has grown by 50% because of the debate, and then Kelly's platform has been shrinking. And if you actually notice, if you've seen her recent TikToks, you'll see that her own comment section is completely hostile to her. Like, she's getting ratioed in her own comment section whenever she posts a TikTok now. it's amazing. Like she has lost all credibility on TikTok because of this debate.
Hi, Naomi's editor Sky here. I thought I'd give my quick opinions on the topic of specifically platforming Kelly. My hope, not necessarily Naomi's, but my hope with mass outputting content around the Kelly debate has been a sort of preventative measure. When Kelly went down the conservative pipeline, she was almost immediately signal boosted by Buck Angel. I personally want anyone who Googles Kelly Cadigan to see her inability to espouse conservatism from a grifting position, hopefully stopping her from networking and doing other things with other conservatives and gaining the traction of like a Blair White-esque figure. There is also the consideration that debating is not always about changing the opponent's opinion, but the audience's, and Kelly has an incredibly large trans and queer following, or well, had. The last thing I want is for that audience to be converted into conservatism by Kelly.
Other people have criticized me for saying that I didn't sufficiently destroy Kelly's views on slavery. I believe that I did a sufficient job of taking her down. I do want to be clear that, like, I do think that I was not engaging with her points as much as I could have directly. To be completely fair, I was completely caught off guard when Kelly decided to just, like, defend slavery. I thought that was going to be a no-brainer. You know, I will definitely take credit for being off guard in that kind of situation. If I am going to use that as an example, I should probably be able to, like, have a guard up if that's the way that people respond. So I'll take credit for that, for sure. You know, with kind of, like, my off-guardness, my intention during that portion of the convo wasn't necessarily to just, like, meticulously point-by-point demolish everything she was saying, but rather to focus more on exposing and humiliating her for her horrible, horrible take. Just by time and time again, metaphorically, tossing her this rope to pull herself up by, and then just watching as she hangs herself with it. That was kind of my strategy there. This approach has been effective in kind of like political movements. If you're like at all familiar with the kind of the Gamergate era of politics, I mean, this was kind of one of the prime strategies of just showing like some stupid SJW and then like laughing, haha, SJW bad, therefore all left-wing ideas are bad. And this was actually really effective at making people anti-leftism in general. So I think that we can probably do a similar thing with insane racists on the right. And then if you want like a more contemporary example, there's Walter Masterson, who does stuff over on YouTube and TikTok. This guy, he's basically doing the exact same strategy that I was.
So you're with Moms for Liberty. So you're telling me there's a new threat besides gender ideology, besides critical race theory. What's this third one?
So social emotional learning is basically the Trojan horse that allows critical race theory, that allows the critical queer theory, teaching our kids how to feel, teaching them about their feeling. Rather than parents paying for a therapist for their children, they let the teachers do it at school.
They talk about their feelings?
They talk about their feelings all the time, or they'll say, it's called formative conversations, and they'll say, so how can we show empathy? Let's say that we have...
So empathy?
Okay, so if the word, let's say they have a word of the week, and the word of the week at my child's school was empathy.
Have you seen this Naomi TikTok?
And the teacher started talking, how can we show empathy? And then she says, if you have a friend that has two moms, how can you have empathy? Well, my child comes home and says, Mom, there can be two moms. You know, and then it's these conversations leading
So I hope that illustrates my point that it can absolutely be rhetorically effective just to watch in shock as people say stupid things that are entirely self-defeating. And that was more so my intention, especially with how I was kind of caught off guard there. I will absolutely take fault for being caught off guard. Other people asked why I, as a white person, engaged in discussions about race, and I am a strong believer that everybody should work together to dismantle systems of oppression and to forward progressive political movements. Ultimately, you know, these kinds of systems harm a lot of people, and creating a better, more equal world for everyone is a great political goal. I'm a staunch supporter of anti-racist advocacy, and I have a history of engaging and promoting anti-racist advocacy on my platforms. Other people called me like a clout shark, or that I was just debating and posting clips for social capital. And to be clear, I don't expect people to give me praise, capital, whatever, for debating. My primary goal in debating is to build stronger left-wing rhetoric and to expose reachable centrists and reactionaries to solid left-wing arguments. I think that a lot of the times when you have kind of like an average Joe who is reactionary, conservative, etc., it's not because they're a grifter, or it's not because that, like, they explicitly hate minorities. I think that oftentimes they just don't understand like the factual material experience of minorities and of oppressed populations, and that through education, through reaching them, yeah, you can absolutely bring people over. And that's kind of like my political goals. At the same time, I also want to expose, humiliate, and demolish the harmful and fascistic rhetoric of the right wing. And this approach has been demonstrated to be very effective in de-radicalizing fascists, as well as getting apolitical normies involved in left-wing politics and progressive advocacy. I think it's one of the benefits of debate that a lot of people kind of forget about. There's a lot of like normies who are very like apolitical. They don't really invest their time in politics. They don't really invest energy in politics. But it is through debates or other forms of like political entertainment and education where they get a lot more invested in this. And I mean, I myself is somebody who was radicalized by kind of the debate sphere, and at least to an extent. And so, yeah, putting forth a platform that can get more people politically engaged, I think is an awesome thing to do. Another criticism I got was for eliciting like a particularly Black emotional trauma response, and I think this criticism is completely fair. I absolutely did. The slavery debate clip did absolutely elicit this kind of a response, and at the very minimum, I should have put an explicit trigger warning on the post. It's this kind of thing where, like, white supremacy is very easy for white people to just set down, ignore, and only think about whenever they want to, because it's convenient for them. It doesn't negatively affect them in their lives and in their material experience. Black people aren't given the chance of ignoring white supremacy when it's woven into their material experience. Exposing Black viewers to Ku Klux Kelly without any kind of trigger warning was at the very least irresponsible, and I absolutely take full responsibility for that fault. And then other people have been asking if like I am going to like listen to Black voices on kind of the discourse and the response to the debate clip. And yes, I did. I found a variety of creators. What I found is that there's no kind of like monolithic perspective. I kind of, you know, in seeing these perspectives, I found 4 main perspectives of the type of people that I was seeing responding to the video. Perspective 1 goes along the lines of exposing racists such as Kelly is harmful. It contributes to Black emotional trauma, legitimizes racism as something that's even up for discussion, and gives viral attention to racists. Perspective number 2 is that white people should not discuss Black issues, that you should stay in your lane and let Black people discuss the issues that affect them. Meanwhile, perspective 3 is that exposing racists such as Kelly is praxis, is effective. It's, you know, publicly airing the stupidity and racism of conservatives damages their legitimacy and platform amongst reachable and reasonable people, which helps to bring people over to the left. And then perspective number 4 is that white people should discuss Black issues. White supremacy is ultimately a problem created and perpetuated by white people, and as such, it's important for white people to challenge and dismantle it. You'll notice that some of these perspectives are explicitly contradictory, so it is impossible to agree with all of them, but I want to be clear that I have listened to them, I have seen these perspectives, and I absolutely agree with perspectives 3 and 4, that exposing and humiliating racists is praxis, and that, you know, white supremacy as a problem created by white people absolutely should be talked about and dealt with by white people. I also believe that there is some merit to perspective 1, especially with respect to, you know, these kind of videos going viral, eliciting a trauma response. You know, I wish that we lived in a world where, you know, racism was so dogmatically opposed to that it like wasn't even something that's up for like up on the table for like normies. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, and so I think it is important to challenge that rhetoric. And I disagree with perspective 2 because I think that we should build, you know, stronger coalitions of allyship and of working together to kind of tackle these issues. I think the big critique I had of the Black trans woman is it seemed like it was used as a gotcha. Yeah, it's definitely along the lines of like the, you know, why didn't you use like a different example, especially if it was like kind of a conversation that you weren't fully prepared to go into. And yeah, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. I think that especially seeing how racist reactionaries tend to be this day, yeah, it's unfortunate that it's not an example that's like just taken for given by the types of people that I end up debating. So I'll try to use a different example that's more intuitively correct and understandable by those types. Came to the left 3 years ago, people exposed liars, so it does work. Exactly, yeah, no, like, lots of people, especially normies, get radicalized by political entertainment. You know, I've seen people that are very upset about the fact that it is entertainment which gets people into politics, and yeah, I think it's fair to be upset about that kind of thing, but it's an unfortunate reality that comedy or other forms of entertainment is an effective way to reach people, and, you know, if it's a tactic that we can employ, I think that, yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, I care about the end goals more than I care about whether or not we're making light of like a shitty situation. Sometimes laughing through the shitty situations is all you can do.